What's up, cooks? It's Wednesday, so we have an exciting Amy Learns to Cook today. We are going to be grinding some hard white wheat in the NutriMill Grain Mill to make us some whole wheat flour. So if you want to take your bread making to a whole nother level, you need to start thinking about what's your ingredients is. And the finest ingredients that you can do is to make your own flour. It's fresh, doesn't have any additives, it's what you get right straight from the farm. So today we are going to be using this and we're going to be doing our first batch of flour. So join me. It's Wednesday. Welcome to the Amy Learns to Cook kitchen. Okay, the world of milling is huge, and I am not going to say that we're going to be covering everything that you would use one of these mills for. This is the very beginning, right? The very start. If you're thinking about milling your own flour, we're starting from the very beginning. And to do that, you have to start and get a mill. So there's a lot of mills out there. There is the Wonder Mill, there is a Mock Mill, there is this mill and that mill. I happen to have the NutriMill. This is the classic. NutriMill has a couple other models. They have the Harvest that's made out of bamboo. This is the classic. I've had this for a couple years, but to be honest with you, I haven't used it. And so I am trying to get into more bread baking, so I need to start thinking about my ingredients. And so I'm starting with the flour. So this subject is very complex, but we're going to start at the very basics. So the reason you want to grind your own flour is flour companies take out a lot of the best of the wheat and they put back things into it to make the wheat produce softer bread. They make it more shelf stable. They want a certain color to it. So they strip out a lot of things out of the flour and they add it back in terms of nutrients, because you're stripping out all the goodness out of the wheat and they have to replace it with those nutrients, some of them, right? Because they did this way back in the day. It was very fashionable to have fluffy white bread, and so they were stripping everything out and getting only to the core of the wheat, and all the nutrients are gone and people were getting sick. So they started putting the nutrients back in, so that's why you see when you buy flour, it says enriched, right? Because they're putting back vitamins, essential vitamins, that the public should be getting in their whole wheat bread. So if you want to start bringing that nutrition back into your flour and you want to get out the bleaching and the bromating and all that whitens the flour, you need to start milling that yourself. And to do that, you need a grain mill and you need some wheat. So these grain mills do more than just wheat, right? They do all kinds of grains, they do corn, they do all kinds of fun stuff. That's an entire world of milling. So we're at step one. Our very first step is to get a hold of some wheat. Sometimes that can be difficult because they don't carry it everywhere, right? We are fortunate. We have some Amish grocery stores around us that carry huge bags of flour, huge bags of wheat, all that. We're fortunate. If you are in an area where you don't have that, you can look into shipping. It's expensive. It'll add a good $40-50 to the bag of your wheat. Is it worth it? Yes, because you're getting the nutrients that you're not going to get in regular flour, and the cost of that is worth it. You can also look at sources like Azure Standard. They are a company that has a lot of natural foods. You can get wheat. You can get all kinds of stuff from them. And they have drops around the country once a month, twice a month. You have to go to their website, Azure Standard, put in your email and find out when they have a truck drop. Basically, they run trucks around the country and they have what they call drops. It's basically where you pick up your goods, and it could be in a parking lot, it could be on someone's farm, it could be on the side of the road, wherever they're hosting drops. And the truck will come down a major interstate and drop in different cities. So you order in advance by a certain date and you show up that day for the drop. That's another way to get. That's a great way because they have great prices and you don't have those huge shipping fees quite like you do if you order just generally from the internet. Fortunately, we are able to get some, so we are on our way to one local store where we can get bags of wheat. We have several options around here. We have some really big Amish stores that we can get all kinds of stuff, but we have one that's somewhat close, so we're going to head over there. Let's go see what they got and get us a bag of wheat. One last note. When you're buying wheat, there are two major classifications, hard wheat and soft wheat. Hard wheat tends to be grown in the west and the north. Soft wheat is grown in the south. And you can see how the cuisines develop based on where that wheat is growing. So hard wheat is what you want for bread flour and all-purpose flour. It is higher in protein, higher in gluten. It's going to give you what you need to develop bread. If you're making tender bakes, you're making pie, you're making cake, you're making biscuits, you want soft wheat. Hard wheat is high gluten, high protein. Soft wheat is low. Cakes, cookies, tender. Hard wheat is robust and strong. So you can call it strong flour, hard flour, bread flour, high gluten flour, whatever you want. Cake flour, pastry flour, that's the difference between soft. That's why you see the cuisines in the South are biscuits. In the North was bread, right? Because the North grows hard and the South grows soft. So that's how their cuisine developed. So we're after hard because we're going to be using it for bread baking. If you can get both because it allows you to use it in all your bakes. In the hard category for easy intensive purposes, because wheat is like wine, hard red wheat tends to be nuttier and more robust. So you can buy hard white, hard red, or buy two and mix them. It's wine, right? And that is what's going to bring out flavors, complexity, and the characteristics you want in your bread. So we're buying hard white wheat. It's the simplest thing to go to. It's easier to work with just because it's not quite as dense. So for beginners, that's where we're started. So let's go get some hard white wheat. So I'm going to get a bag of sugar because I haven't been able to get it. $55? That's just insane. Maybe I won't get it here. Okay, that was kind of a bust because the bulk food people leave at 3, so I couldn't get a 50-pound bag, but I did get about 14 pounds. We have enough to use that for this weekend. I also got me a little red roses and a bag of potato starch, and I got 2 small bags of sugar. I'm going to order this from Sam's Club. Oh, and I also got some saf.
Hi, Debbie.
So when we went back in there, we went to the customer service desk and they were able to find this. So we were able to get a 50-pound sack of wheat. I also had previously bought these. So we're going to be using these today. These are It's the same thing. Prairie Gold 86. These are 7.2 pounds a piece. So this is a 50-pound sack of wheat Montana, Prairie Gold, hard white wheat, as I said. This comes from Montana. There's a company called Wheat Montana Farms and Bakery in Three Forks, Montana, and that's where this comes from. It's non-GMO wheat. This is what we're going to be using. Okay, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to put this we're going to use these today. We're going to put this one in the freezer. That way, if wheat comes with eggs in it, that's just a fact of life. And so to keep them from hatching, you put it in the freezer for a little while. We're going to put it in there for a week. And then we're going to end up putting these in one of those Vittelvault dog pound things so we can use them on with the gamma lid, so we could use them, and it's going to go in the dog pound. So wheat lasts for a long time. If you put some oxygen absorbers in there and a gamma lid on there, or you use some of those vacuum bags, these will last for years and years and years, right? When you grind this is when it starts to degrade. The second you grind it, it starts to degrade. So you want to grind it and use it. So grind what you're going to use.
Or else it'll go rancid.
It'll go rancid. So just grind it and use it within a day or two. Preferably grind it on the same day. Sometimes, you spend all this time grinding and it's like, I don't want to bake the bread. So bake it the next day. But make sure you're grinding it fresh. Don't grind it when you get it and hold it as flour. Hold it as grain. So we're going to talk about the NutriMill. I'm going to show you how to use it. One of the things about this is you have various parts of the wheat that makes it can make your bread more dense. It's more nutrient dense, but it makes the bread more dense because it takes more to get it to go up because it's heavy. So the question is to sift or not to sift. Because when you mill whole grains, if you sift out the bran, your bread will be a little softer. And you can add in extra gluten to help it out, because you need some extra gluten to give you that lift because it's heavy. We're going to sift it out right now because I'm a beginner and I don't want to make a hockey puck. So we're going to be sifting this today. I know there's people who are going to say, don't sift it, right? Okay, today we're sifting it because I'm learning. But you can take what you sifted out and you can put that in other things. You can make muffins and put that bran in there. You can throw it in your cereal and your oatmeal, whatever you want to do. You can use that bran. We're going to sift it just because I'm a beginner. So let me get this out of here. And let's start using the NutriMill. Okay, so how the NutriMill works is you have your container where the flour is going to go down here. So you take this out, right? And here, this is like a little filter. So one of the things you'll learn about grinding flour is it can make a hot mess. So these things are very contained, if you will, to keep flour from poofing everywhere, right? So when you first get your NutriMill Classic, you will notice that it's really hard to get this lid off. But you want to dust it with flour, and then you can get it on and off easier.
The flour acts as a lubricant on the rubber gasket.
Yeah. So here's the lid.
See how easy?
And here's your rubber gasket. So I dusted it with flour. So I just took a little AP flour and I went like this around the edge. And that gives you a little bit of, over time it gets easier and easier and you don't necessarily have to dust it quite as much. But when you first get it,
every time you wash it, it dries.
Sometimes you'll say like, I can't get the lid off, right? It has to be a really tight seal, because otherwise if you ever been in a flour mill, a grain mill, you will know that the entire building is covered in flour, right? So this right here is sort of a dust catcher. So we have this cup here that's going to catch anything, so it recirculates it back and gets the dust in that cup. This is a little thing that the flour is going to come down on into this bucket. When you're doing your milling, you have to cram this sucker all the way in there. It has to like latch down in there, otherwise it'll be a mess. So the NutriMill has a lid here, and it also has this ring, and you can take this ring off for cleaning. Sometimes when you get this, the ring is inside the bowl when you unpack it. So make sure you get the ring out and put it here, because this is how you're going to fill it up for your grain. So this is your hopper. This is where we're going to put the grain. So one unique thing about the NutriMill Classic is a lot of mills, you have to put the grain in first and then fire up the mill because it'll get jammed in there. The NutriMill has some kind of setup where you don't have to do that. So you can put your grain in here and then fire up the mill, and it doesn't jam like a lot of other grain mills. So, of course, I'm not an expert at this, so I do have the manual here. I have used it, but I have the manual here. So, these two things are going to control the texture and the grind of your flour. We have the motor speed and the feed rate. The feed rate turns it on and off. So where do you set these? If you think about it, this motor speed starts at high and goes to low. So the slower the mill, the coarser the flour is going to be, because the mill's moving slow and the grain's going through there and it's not getting hammered as much. Right. So the higher it is, the finer your grain. So the higher you go, if you want to make pastry flour, cake flour, all-purpose flour, you're going to have the motor speed higher. If you want really coarse cornmeal, or if you want coarser bread flour, you will bring it to slower. Generally speaking, for bread flour, you want it right in the middle. So that's what we're going to do. We're going straight
12
average,
12
right?
Position, yeah.
What also controls that is the speed that it's going through. This is slow, this is fast. So this is fast, this is slow, this is slow, this is fast. So the slower the motor speed and the faster the grain is going through, the coarser it's going to be. Because the motor's moving slow, the grain's flying through like a highway, right?
There's not much
the Autobahn, there's not as much contact. The faster the mill goes and the slower the grain is moving through, it stays in there longer, it's moving slow, and the mill is just, right? So the finer your flour is going to be. So the more experience you get with your grain mill, you will know not only the mix in terms of flavors like wine, but you're going to learn the texture you want for the result that you want. I cannot tell you what that's going to be. It's all about experience. So buy yourself a 50-pound sack of wheat and don't worry about screwing up, right? Because you're learning. So we're going to go in the middle. We're going to go middle speed, middle motor speed, middle feed rate to get us the bread flour. But you're going to play with these depending on what you want. So we're ready to go. The only other thing for us beginners that we need to know is the amount that we need to grind, because you know wheat flour goes bad. So you only want to basically grind what you're going to use. Generally speaking, you're going to get about 1.25 cups to 1.5 cups of flour for every cup of grain. But that's really going to depend on how fine, how much you sift out because we're going to do some sifting of that bran. So the more you sift, the more bran you're going to be taking out and the less flour you're going to get.
Teacher,
So,
quick question. And I know I'm getting ahead. There are things you're going to be adding to this in the bread making.
yeah, you might be adding gluten.
Do you count that towards your little flour for the recipe?
Possibly. I don't know. To be honest with you, I don't know.
We know regular
If you
bread.
put gluten flour in there that has some flour in it, it's going to screw with your hydration. So you probably need to include it as the weight of your flour.
Probably.
Because if you don't, then your hydration's going to be off, right? So, yeah, right. And so, whatever, right?
But that's the next chapter, right?
I think I'm going to grill. I'm going to grill. I think I'm going to grind. I want to play around this week. So I'm going to grind like
6 cups maybe?
6 or 8 cups. And I want to play with it. So that's what we're going to do. That's what I said, and that's what we're going to do. So let's start grinding. Okay, so let's get going. Now after I've been just going on and on and on, right? That's all good. So here's our wheat. And like I said, I'm going to put 7 cups of flour. 7 cups of wheat in here. How much you can put in here really depends on whatever meal you have. So I'm going to sort of slowly pour it in here because I didn't sort it. And you want to make sure that you don't have like any major like rocks or anything. This wheat Montana is fairly clean wheat. I've used it before and I never really had a problem. 2, 3, 4. Let's do 4 and then I'll come back and do 3 more. Okay, so these things are loud. This one's not quite as loud as some of the other ones, but they're loud.
Hearing protection could be recommended.
If you want to and you're worried about the grain flying everywhere, put the lid on. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the knob to the middle and we're going to let this go. Making flour. Let it go about 5 seconds so to clear out everything that's in there. Okay guys, so we have fresh milled flour. Ooh, look at it. So this is your dust collector. We don't have any dust flying around the house, really at all. So this is fresh milled whole wheat flour. And one of the things you can see is just look at the color compared to white flour.
Yeah, it's definitely a tan kind of.
It's a tan. There's a lot of, so we can sift a lot of that, some of it out. It depends on how far you want to go with that, right? You can use, so I have a 40 mesh and a 60 mesh sifter. You can get electric sifters, which is a lot easier, because if you try to, so like the 60 mesh is the finest and the 40 mesh is like this. So if you try to put this flour through the 60 mesh, it'll probably take you 2 hours to get it through that.
Well, first of all, because it's only crushed to a medium coarse, and
it's going to take you forever to get it through.
And that's like cake mix.
Yeah.
Cake flour.
So we're going to do this through the 40. The Bosch has a flour sifter, and I have one. The problem is it doesn't have different sizes. It only has really fine. So it's for sifting like pastry flour and really fine cake flour. It doesn't really work with this. You can get electric ones. Maybe I can get one at some point to make my life easier. But it can take you a while to sift this. You can use this just like this. But you also have to, it has your full nutrition in there, but also you have to learn how to not get a brick, right?
Because it's very dense and very...
Yeah, it's very dense, and all this extra stuff takes...
it ain't Wonder Bread.
No. So you need a lot of dough conditioners and a lot of gluten. So I'm going to go ahead and put some in here, and we're going to start sifting, and I'll show you what is left over. So this is with the 40. Some people start sifting with the 40, and then if they really want to get more of that out, they'll sift then.
Like a 50?
Yeah, with a finer. See how it's getting... It's dusty. The flour is getting lighter, and this is our bran, right? So like I said, what's going to be your yield? It all depends on how much you sift it. If you only sift half of it, oops, I just got a little back in there.
A little won't kill us.
A little will be very good for us. So here's some of that bran. We can throw the bran in here, and now we can use this in other things. We can make bran muffins with that. We can do all kinds of stuff with that. So if you sift to get softer bread, but you keep the bran and you use the bran in something else, it's just the same as if you were to eat it in the bread, right? Because you're still eating it.
Can you cheat and use more oil in your recipe to make it softer to overcome the increased bran in this?
You can use softeners. You can use egg. You can use butter. You can use dough conditioners, which is like ascorbic acid. Some people use lecithin. I'm kind of cautious about using lecithin. I can't pronounce it. Because some of it's made out of soy, and soy can screw with your hormones. So I try to lay off the soy as much as I can. So I really am not like thrilled with putting it back in my flour. So we got bread there.
Yeah.
So that's how bread works. Very white, fluffy flour, pastry, and cake has all of that removed, right? It's just the center of the grain. And they're also taking out a lot of nutrients. There's still a lot of nutrients in here. And when you consume that in another dish, you're getting all that.
You're not brominating, you're not bleaching,
No.
so you're not churning it white?
No. Yeah, you'll see bleached flour. They bleach it because bleaching tenderizes it. So sometimes you'll see some people will say, how can you have unbleached cake flour? Because King Arthur makes unbleached cake flour. And some people say, oh, you got to bleach cake flour because the bleaching or the bromating breaks it down even further so it's softer, it's tender. If you get like high ratio cake flour, that's bleached like all the you-know-what. And the more they bleach it, the softer it is and the more tender your thing is. So if if you want to make something that's super tender, maybe. You might need to use bleached flour. You don't want to eat that all the time.
No, but maybe they're able to mill it to make it really tender.
Yeah, they mill it really fine. They sift the heck out of it, and then they bleach the heck out of it. So it's snowy white. So I'm going to finish sifting this, and we'll be back. So this was quite the journey. Sorry it was a lot of information at once. But that's how it goes, right? So this is our sifted flour. Eric finished sifting. It's very soft.
Yeah. Show them the fun part of it.
This is the bran, endosperm, all that. Whatever the larger pieces. It's definitely, look at the color difference. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, even if you have kids, this is a great process for them to learn. So we're going to see how many cups we get out of this. I think I put 7 cups, right? 2, 3, 4, 6. I obviously screwed up because I said I was going to do 7. Now I don't know exactly how much I ended up putting in there because this is 7 right here. So I don't know. Well, yeah. So it gets 1 to 1.5, right?
Yeah. So it inflated is fluffier.
8. 8 3/4. So out of 7, so I didn't really get 1 1/4.
So we can make a couple of batches of bread. We can maybe play with some oatmeal, maybe, right?
Yeah, we're thinking about making some cream of wheat. So we need to get some soft white wheat. So stay tuned for that. So we have that. So the bran, if I don't use the bran immediately, I'm going to freeze it and figure out some things. We can make some recipes with this bran later. We'll put this in the freezer. I'll mark it with the dates.
Well, the bottom line is we still need to use that fairly soon.
Yeah. So we got whole wheat flour here. Stay tuned. We are going to make us some homemade wheat bread. Yay! And hopefully it won't be a brick, right? Thanks for joining me and happy Wednesday.